Hi everybody, welcome back to another video clip. Today I'm joined by Dr. Robert Isles, who's a research lead from the BRE. He's going to talk about social value, which is a topic that you've probably heard mentioned, but really, Robert, what is it? What is social value?
Good afternoon, Catherine. I'm really glad to be on this video, and hello to everybody listening. So what is social value? $6 million question. Well, I think the first answer is it is a minefield. It is an absolute minefield, and I'm sure a lot of you who are listening to this will kind of agree. But I think it is a minefield that you can kind of learn to navigate. I mean, if you go on Google or any search engine or any more authoritative site, you're going to get many definitions of what social value is. And that's absolutely fine. I would encourage people to do that. But for me, I would say social value is this. I think that social value is the value that you can bring or that you can create for society and people during the projects that you will undertake, whether it's in the running of the building or the building of an asset. I think it's as simple as that. It's the value that you bring or create.
I know that it's something that's talked about for construction. Is this something that is just for construction? Is it just for the big companies?
Absolutely, I don't think so. I think as we sort of go forward in time, there's going to be this situation where I think social value is going to become more and more required, more and more mandated. So I think there is the onus on all companies, whether they're in construction or in any other sector, to basically get started with this as soon as possible before it gets mandated, before it gets regulated, and then otherwise you might get sort of left behind.
Can you give some examples of social value? What does it look like in action?
Yeah, that's another good question and another difficult one to answer, because at the outset, once you start looking into definitions of what social value is, according to which framework, some people might say it's this, some people might say it's that, some people might say it's people, some people might say it's people and environment. But there are many aspects to what social value is. Giving local people jobs, giving anybody a job, hiring apprentices, training staff, supporting equal opportunities, giving community the opportunity to consult in your project. And as I said, in some frameworks, it might even expand to environmental things as well, like basically looking after your site, minimizing waste, creating forests and wetlands and those kinds of things as well.
So there's a lot of different ways that companies could come at this depending on what their particular expertise is and where they want to focus. Is that right?
I think so, yeah. And this is a very interesting thing, because often a lot of people don't know where to start with social value. And when and I get asked this question quite a lot with a lot of audiences, where do I start with it? And my initial answer is you already have. To basically look at what you're doing. You hire apprentices, you hire local people. Invariably, you give your staff training. You're already doing social value, and I think the important thing is right at this beginning is to recognise this and actually start recording it, gathering some data on it, and then start gathering some insights from it.
You mentioned there's some of the different things that people might already be doing, and it sounds like there's a very long list of options. I hear people talk about social value calculators. Is that a way that small businesses could get some ideas and start to work out the value equivalent of that?
Yeah, that's a good one. And again, social value calculator is something that kind of can be a bit off-putting and a bit sort of onerous and scary. But look, if you simply make a list, apprentices, jobs, training, consultations, you put some numbers on that, that already is a social value calculator. And I think if you're starting, stick with the actual outcome. How many jobs are you creating? How many apprentices are you hiring? How many consultation hours are you doing? Just kind of stick with the outcome. That already is a social value calculator. And I know there's one that you're developing yourself, which is a really good one. I think that does categorize value in a really nice way. So that's something that people could be looking at as well. So as a start, I think that's probably something to look at. Now, if you want to go further, you might like to look at things like the National TOMS, United Nations Sustainability Goals, although that kind of might be quite global. for this kind of audience, but it can get as complicated as you like, once you start assigning pounds and points to things. But as I say, pull it right back. You've got a list of positive things that you're doing for society, for people, and for planet, and the actual outcomes. That really is a social value calculator.
Absolutely. It sounds like, I mean, I know that this is around sustainability in that broad sense, as you say there, the people, the planet, the profit. For businesses who are maybe busy and involved in lots of things, and this is just one of many priorities that they could be considering and could be taking up their time, what would you say to them? What's the point of doing this? What's the purpose?
Well, there's a couple of answers to that question. The first answer is because it's a good thing to do. For one thing, it's been widely reported that construction is not sustainable. We can't carry on doing the things that we're doing in the same manner. It's not sustainable. It's not sustainable for the planet. It's not efficient. We don't have the people to carry on doing things as we're always doing. So there's the kind of more philanthropic angle from it, that it is a good thing to do, to look after people and to look after environment. But there's another side to it as well, in that with recent policy notices that have come out specifically, and I'm being geeky here, there's 0620 and 0621. So have a look at those public procurement notices that have come out. You're going to see an environment increasingly where these things are going to be mandated, and especially if you're bidding for any public work, you're going to see requirements for social value. So I think you need to think about getting on the bandwagon now, rather than wait until it's absolutely mandated and you might already be behind.
Brilliant, that's great. Thank you so much, Dr. Robert Iles. It was fantastic to hear your take on social value. Thank you.
Thanks very much for having me.
Fabulous. The sound dropped out a little bit there. It just it is a bit sort of sketchy in places, but I think I can edit around it. Do you want to have a go again? I can't remember what order I asked those questions in, but we can just have the conversation again and see. Or are there other bits that you?
No, I think that's fine. Why don't we just do it again, and you can choose the lumps that you see fit to put into the final video. I mean, how was that? How was that kind of what you wanted to hear?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the thing. I want people to realize that it sounds super scary, and if you're a massive contractor who's got a team full of people that handle stuff, then you don't need to, you can pass this on to them. If you're a small business and you're already up to your ears dealing with clients and staff and things, this is just another thing to worry about. And I want people to actually think, okay, we can do more, we can do better in the world, especially, as you say, the sort of global goals. And I am going to reference those on the page that this sits on the website, but just as a sort of a signpost as much as anything, that none of us individually is ever going to solve these problems, but
yeah, I'd be a bit tentative with the United Nations ones, because although it's very good and it's a really nice framework and BREEAM comes out of it, etc., sometimes in itself it can be a little bit of a blocker because it's a bit too global. You look at that and think, well, how the hell could I ever contribute to some of these things? And that's why it's good to mention in passing, but always relate back to the fact of start with a very small list of things that you are actually doing of actual benefit. I know it's kind of joy washing, but why not feel good about some of the things that I invented that word actually. It sounds like greenwashing.
And for small businesses, that's absolutely it. If you've got some fair trade tea and coffee, if you've got some apprentices, if you've got computer monitors that switch themselves off in the evenings, and sensors on the lights and things, and you're doing some good financial reviews, even if you're not doing the triple bottom line stuff, you're probably doing a step towards sustainability that is going to feel good and isn't going to be overwhelming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's roll it then. Let's go again.
Okay. All right. Hi everybody. Welcome. Today we're Hello, everybody. Welcome. Today we're joined by Dr. Robert Isles, who's research lead at the BRE, who's going to talk to us about social value, a phrase that you might have heard thrown around a little bit, certainly becoming quite a topic in construction. Hi, Robert. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm very glad to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about social value? What is it? What does it mean?
Well, that's a really good question, and actually a really important one. My initial answer is social value is a minefield, but it is a minefield that I think you can navigate. So I mean, look, it's like this. You can go to a search engine and you can ask the question what social value is, and you're going to get a lot of different answers, and that probably doesn't help you actually find the answer that you want. But I like to think of social value as being something that's sort of defined quite simply. It's the value that you bring or you create to society and people during your projects. And I think just kind of keep it simple like that, keep it in that spirit. Positive impacts, positive benefits for people in society. Here's the confusion though, in some frameworks, you might actually see that social value and environmental value are all kind of wrapped up together. So it might extend to, creating trees, minimizing the waste that you're actually creating on your projects as well. That doesn't matter, it depends on the framework that you're going to use. Don't get hung up about that. I think stick with the core thing that social value is about, positive benefits, the value that you bring to society and people.
You mentioned there the benefits. Is it a financial value, or are there other ways of defining this? Could it be more than just money?
Yeah, so here's the thing. Again, if you start researching it, you might get very confused about the many different ways that people use to calculate social value. I would say for this audience, just start with the actual tangible benefits that you're creating. So whether it's creating jobs, hiring a number of apprentices, just keep with those numbers for the moment. If you get into it in more detail, you might find systems that actually turn this into points or turn this into pound values, and that's fine if you want to go down that route. But I think if you're starting out, just stick with the actual thing that you're creating.
Can you give us some examples of what those things might be that people are creating? You mentioned apprentices there. Are there other things that businesses could consider?
Yeah, sure. Creating local jobs, training your people, undertaking community consultations, in your projects. Some of these things you have to do anyway. Many different things. Now here's the thing as well. If your definition of social value also includes benefits to the environment, then it could be things like minimizing waste, creating habitats and things like this as well.
Is it related to the project that you deliver? Is it related to you as a small business, or as a business, as an organization, or is it a bit of both?
I think it's definitely both. There is social value that you're going to be creating through the mere fact that you go to work during the day. There's social value that's in your business operations, for example, making sure that your staff have the right training, that they're competent to do the jobs. That in itself is creation of social value within your business. So yes, it's definitely both. It's about value that you can create within your business and value that you can create out in the wider world as well.
Fantastic. I keep hearing about social value calculators. Is that something that you would recommend small businesses take a look at and start using?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, just like the whole definition of social value, a social value calculator can seem something that's quite scary, quite onerous, and quite difficult to understand. But look, I think it comes down to this. You can get a piece of paper and write down a list of maybe 4 or 5 things like apprentices, training hours, things like that. Put some values in the right-hand side. You've already got a social value calculator, and in its most basic form, and I think in its purest form as well, because it actually documents the benefits that you have created. So I would say to anybody, start along these lines, start doing things like that, start to actually list them, start to kind of create data of this kind.
For people who are watching this, who are thinking, okay, maybe we've got some apprentices, we create some jobs, we do some training. What is the point of social value? What's the added benefit to us making a record of these and documenting it? What are we doing for ourselves and the construction industry by doing that?
So I think there's two broad things I want to talk about to that question. The first one is it's simply a good thing to do. It's simply a good thing. I think you need to look after your people, otherwise they're going to fly. They're going to go and find an organisation that treats them better. It's simply a good thing to do for the planet as well. But this is often a barrier to actually companies doing social value, because it can sort of eat at their bottom line. It can cost money initially, and there's a perception that it's going to eat away your profits if you're doing all these philanthropic things, if you're creating value for the environment and so on and so forth. But look at it another way. If you look at what's going on in policy environment, and I'm being a bit of a geek here, there's two policy statements that came out quite recently. There's one called 0620 and one called 0621. You're going to see increasingly that social value is going to be required by your clients, especially if you're bidding in the public arena for public works. So I would say to anybody, get on the bandwagon as fast as you can, learn about social value for yourself and for your business as soon as possible, before it's too late and it is actually mandated and kind of got left behind.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Dr. Robert Iles. Hopefully lots of inspiration for you there to get on board with social value. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.